The South African Local Government Association is urging government to end what they call fragmentation of municipal salaries. Joining us is Director of Operations at SALGA KZN'S Sabelo Gwala to talk more about this, how this will be achieved. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time. With the national government regulating the salaries of some employees and councillors, while the bargaining council is responsible for the rest of employees, that itself seems to not be proving effective. How does it exacerbate the situation?
Well, greetings to you and greetings to the viewers at home. We've had engagements at various levels of the intergovernmental framework discussing how we could possibly have one system in local government that governs how salaries are paid. Now, at the moment, you have salary scales for councillors having a number of notches or categories, and you have determinants for that, determined by the minister to be population or population size versus the income of the municipality. And then for senior managers, it's a different category based on different factors as well. And then you have the bargaining council as well doing the same, using different factors and having different categories as well. That leads to misinformation and leads to what we've observed as wildcat strikes. That means it's strikes that happen on the shop floor, where, for example, a word would spread that the employees are being paid at a category 3, but the councillors are paid at a category 2, and the senior managers are paid at category 4, for example. Meanwhile, these are all different factors, but it leads to miscommunication, and it gets very easy to arouse people's dissatisfaction, and that leads to problems that we are seeing now. One of the challenges we've observed, especially in rural or far-flung areas where sometimes information doesn't reach quickly, by the time you send the word out to say, no, this is a misinterpretation of the categorization process, you've already had a strike. You've already had a wildcat strike. We do need to create synergy where there is a single point where these remuneration processes are handled. Around election time as well, I must state, there is an eagerness to use parallel processes that are outside of going directly to the bargaining council, and that is very harmful to the sector, because a municipality on the shop floor level cannot negotiate things that should be negotiated at a bargaining council level. That would be irresponsible, and it would be hard to implement whatever they would have agreed there. Those are some of the observations that someone like myself would have observed over the past 15 years or so, and that we need to arrest. And the minister is at the center of remuneration of senior managers and councillors, while the bargaining council is doing a similar but separate process for employees. And
what would be an ideal situation when it comes to municipal employees and managers, the salary scales, the systems of remuneration in local government? Because we can't ignore that there are different hierarchies and different levels of skill.
Yeah. Well, let me first start off by simply stating that we must sympathize with an employee who feels aggrieved. And we must affirm that employees have the right to engage in a protected strike. And this is enshrined in our constitution, in our laws, and we can't stop employees from engaging in industrial action that is protected. And that is the ideal place that all negotiations should happen, within a protected environment. Every one of us should not be on a high or podium and claim that the system is perfect, because unfortunately, as things stand now, we will end up talking past each other. Employees are correct when they say, look, I need to feel like I am being paid a fair wage based on the value that I provide. Similar the employer cannot mid-term through a negotiation process simply just implement when the negotiations are not finished. So we must sympathize with both parties at the fact that they've landed in this very difficult situation. It calls for maturity on all sides. What we have as a proposal, first of all, is a single point where senior managers and employees are remunerated within a single system. And you've also got public servants, or what you would call public office bearers, who are currently remunerated in a different process. We need to have synergy between these two points. Local government is very unique, and to regulate it in a manner that harms its reputation would be to call for trouble, and you'd end up having to put out fires on a more regular basis. That would be our only blame. Now, is the bargaining council an appropriate place for senior managers to negotiate? If one says, look, I want to tweak that a bit where it's not the bargaining council, well, the point is senior managers should also get to bargain, similar to employees. You would also have greater alignment between what we agree on at the bargaining council and what we eventually implement if we are all affected by the same thing. And that brings empathy to the situation, because if I'm also impacted by the situation, I'm likely to be empathetic towards it. I'm also likely to implement measures that bring about reforms that would improve the municipality's well-being and lead to me as a manager getting paid more, being rewarded better. But imagine if my salary is being determined elsewhere by someone else that I don't even get to negotiate with. That is difficult to not lead to some fragmentation. Yeah. Now, with regards to the eThekwini matter, let us, first and foremost, let me support the mayor in his assertion, because that is an important assertion, and it's something that I would like to appeal to all mayors, because this might come up elsewhere as we head towards the elections. It's common, as I've stated earlier, it's quite common that there would be a desire for political discussion around salaries or a shop floor discussion around salaries. The only reason we involve SALGA in this process is so that we don't end up negotiating salaries on the shop floor, because it becomes contentious and it becomes difficult for people to say no or yes, and pressure and so forth. The mayor is correct. The bargaining council has been dealing with this matter since around 2016. So we need to look at the facilitator's proposal and we need to negotiate it. And even if we were to implement it today, the proposal that is currently on the table, it has many disadvantages for some of the lower level employees that if we need to improve it, if I can put it that way. So if parties remain on the table, that is the only plea that we can make. Let's stay at the table. Let's de-escalate conflict. And in the end, we will have a win-win situation rather than what we are seeing.
What are some of the highlights on the proposal that's currently on the table, the specific demands made by eThekwini employees, and what sort of response has that garnered?
Well, I would want to not delve too deeply in the matter, because everything in a negotiation is up for negotiation. But I empathize with somebody who says I have a performance bonus that I'm owed and I need to be paid. I empathize with somebody in that situation. I also empathize with someone who says, if I implement this, I'm likely to have a financial ruin because it would be expensive. I also empathize with what I view as, or let's say, SALGA views the categorization process or the wage curve process as it's been described it's been a protracted discussion. And when you have protracted negotiations, you sometimes need to do a market research, and you need to go to the market and scale where you would place and how you would value this job. A lot of things have changed. When we last did the market research, it was pre-COVID, and a lot of the salaries have since changed. A lot of what the market pays has since changed. To implement things as they are now, as what we saw last year, around 2019 or so, would not be a prudent decision to make. So those are some of the things that I can highlight to say, as things stand now, both parties need to get back to the negotiating table. Yeah. And the issues that...
Very quickly, if you'll allow me to interrupt you there, just very quickly, the short one, Moody's has opted to downgrade the city of Ekurhuleni and put the city of Tshwane on notice for a downgrade. What does it say about the state of our municipalities?
Well, municipalities at the moment, and you would have seen about 3 or 4 SALGA statements, especially in KwaZulu-Natal, talking about the impact of interest rate hikes on municipalities that have debt. A classic example is where a municipality uses its own funds for a disaster, later to recover that money from national government, for an example. But the interest you would have incurred, you would not have catered for that when you made the application to begin with. So some of those delays end up leading to more harm. As things stand now, or as long as we are growing at 0.5% in terms of our economy, businesses are not able to grow, and therefore that leads to finances in the municipality being quite constrained. That is a situation we must all come to accept. Yes. And so you will find municipalities that have got loans for infrastructure development and so forth, facing a bigger burden of interest rates, but also facing the lack of growth of our economy. That is likely to be the case.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry to have to cut you short, Sabelo Gwala, Director of Operations at SALGA KZN.